Okay. Morning, folks, and welcome to this meeting of the HR Committee. Just to make members aware, obviously it's remembrance, there's a remembrance service outside at 11:15. What I'm intending to do is, if we're still here at 11 o'clock, we'll have the minute silence here. Otherwise, we'd have to then, disembark really early, etc. It's probably an inconvenience, unfortunately, due to timing. So I hope that's okay with people, but we just respect this silence in here, should we be in here. Have we had any apologies for absence?
What's here, Chair?
No? Okay, any declarations of interest? No? Minutes of the last meeting? Any matters of accuracy?
Yeah.
Yeah, we agreed.
I agree.
Any matters arising? No? Okay, they're agreed as a true reflection. Thank you. Move on to item 4, Human Resources Update.
To me, I think. So this is the report, the quarterly report that we bring to committee, summarising our key HR metrics. There's two different periods actually in this because of the way that the committee dates fell. So the first is 1st of July to 3rd September, which is quarter 2. And absence data, which actually we've taken back to the 1st of April, so that covers 2 periods because of when the last committee date was held. And also Matt's here to look at equalities monitoring data for the 6-month period, because we review that every 6 months and add it onto this report. So just to explain the formatting of it. The first part of the report under paragraph 2.1 looks at staffing numbers. We've actually got a more detailed report later on the agenda to do with workforce planning, so I think we'll take most of that, the detail of that, when we go through there. So I was taking us straight to the sickness absence, so paragraph 2.5, just to give an overview of the last 6 months. So it's really 6 months of 2 different quarters. So in quarter 1 we saw a decrease, quite a big decrease in sickness absence, and then in quarter 2 we saw that increasing again. So it's summarised from 2.8 onwards in terms of the workforce. We do split this because our on-call workforce, as you will be aware, they don't work full-time hours Monday to Friday, so we do split them because the way that we show the data is a little bit different. So when we're talking about workforce here, this is our whole-time and support staff cohort. So I think that probably the easiest way of looking at this is to refer to Appendix 1, which is the graph, which shows absence data over a 3-year period, because it shows you the sort of how it progresses during that time. So you can see at the end of those periods between quarter 1 and 2, the decrease there going into quarter 1, and then the slight increase during quarter 2. So it's probably the easiest way of noting that trend. But this does represent a decrease compared to the same period of last year. So although we are seeing a slight increase, actually, there has been a decrease compared to last year. We are still looking at the impact of COVID on absence, because those of you who've been on the committee for a little time will remember that we used to split the COVID absence because it was so significant at the time. We do still look at COVID. It obviously represents a much lower percentage of total absence, so about 4.6%. But we have seen it starting to move again. So we will continue to track that and to see if there are any impacts really on overall absence. We are in this quarter actually promoting flu vaccinations, so obviously we're in that season now when that sort of thing is going around. So we do allow our employees to ask for vouchers, flu vouchers, so they can go along and have a flu vaccination. So we've brought that in this quarter. In terms of overall absence, long-term absence, paragraph 2.11, equated to around 60% of the absence, just under 60% of all absence. And I think in terms of looking at why there has been that increase between quarter 1 and quarter 2, it has been very much linked to some quite serious medical conditions and numbers of people being off for quite a substantial period of time. You did ask Chair at the last meeting to look at work-related absence. So under 2.12 have factored in the percentage there of work-related absence. That's absence which is self-determined. So an employee will say that their absence is work-related on their certificate, and then we obviously look at the circumstances of that. The main reason for that in both quarters will lead to mental health issues, so things like work-related stress. We do have obviously our health and safety team who, when people report work-related accidents or injury, they do investigate those in great detail really, in terms of if there is an accident at work, whether it relates to sickness or not, there will be an investigation to get behind that, to see what lessons we can learn. So in terms of our on-call workforce, a pretty similar picture really. There was quite a significant decrease in quarter one of about 25%, and then in quarter two it did go up again. As I say, when we do look into the detail, predominantly that is linked to long-term absence, and you'll see under 2.17 equated to 72% and 66% of absence, which is quite a significant proportion of sickness absence there. The reasons for sickness absence are set out at Appendix C, which again make it a little bit easier to understand where the issues are, and predominantly for all work groups, they are musculoskeletal or mental health issues, and those are the things which, if people do have an injury or have a mental health issue, do take longer to recuperate and to return to work. But I would like to reassure members that we do have quite a robust support system for people in those circumstances. So in every case we have a return to work interview. If people do have a long-term absence, so that means it's going on for more than 28 days, or if actually the absence is linked to a mental health issue, we do maintain contact with them. We do refer them into our occupational health team. And if it is going to be a long-term absence, then we do link them into our HR business partners and line managers, so they have regular contact meetings with them to see how we can support them in getting back to work. And obviously, once they are ready to return to work, that we can apply any reasonable adjustments that they may need to make sure that they can come back into work in a managed way. Sorry, Councillor.
John, to ask a question now?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Or you want...
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm sure.
Can we wait, or...
Would you prefer to take questions now or at the end?
I don't mind.
No, go for it now.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Actually, it's page 13, workforce. I can see the Black, Asian and minority ethnic group. The 5.6, 46 people. I want to know how many, male and female for this role from the ethnic minority group.
Okay.
Page 13.
Yes, I think that we'll be covering that as part of.
And there's another thing here. They were saying it there is a supervisory manager and middle operational manager are women. There are 5 women in the strategic operational role, manager and assistant chief. Is there any from the Black, Asian and minority, ethnic group? Any ladies in that position, in that role?
Sorry, let me just.
Bottom of 13, top of 14.
Oh, right.
Okay, I don't think we've quite gone to that yet, are we? We're just on 2.13 at the moment, I think, so we get to do that page, I think.
I'm happy to pick those up when we get onto it.
Yeah, okay. All right, when we get onto it, we'll highlight them, if that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just carrying on in terms of sickness absence figures, paragraph 2.19 down to 2.4 highlights the national absence figures, which we reference at each of our meetings. So what that shows us in comparison to other fire and rescue services is that for our whole-time and on-call staff we are below the sector average, but for our support staff we are above the sector average. So we have been doing some work around that in terms of analysing the reasons for that. I think what we found is again that there has been quite a lot of long-term, quite serious absence due to serious medical conditions. I know that a couple of people have actually been retired from the service over the last year as well. And I think the reflection of that is we have got quite a small support workforce compared to the wider workforce. So of course if you've got 2 or 3 people who are absent for the majority of the year, that is going to affect those figures. We're not at all complacent about that figure. We are working with occupational health and with the individuals concerned to try and get them back into work and to support them whilst they are away. So just, I suppose, go away from absence, other workforce metrics under 2.25, nothing really significant to report in the period. There's been 3 investigations which have resulted in a hearing, but no dismissals or employment tribunal cases lodged. So that is the end of the HR update for again.
Thank you.
Okay, so over to me. Just if you look at the top of page 13 at 2.28, you've got a table that shows the difference between March 2023 and September 2023. Headcount has slightly increased from 812 to 824. I suppose across the board in terms of diversity and protected characteristics, which is what we report on to fulfil some of our public sector equality duty under the Equality Act. We have increases across all of those indicators. The speed of those increases are not where we want them to be. I suppose I would draw your attention to the numbers for those who declare themselves to be lesbian, gay or bisexual from the whole workforce. There's been a large increase there, which is really heartening to see. The organisation has worked with Stonewall over a long period of time and has worked hard with a lot of energy and momentum within the organisation to try to improve LGBT equality and inclusivity in the workplace, and that's been over a kind of long period of time, and I feel like we're starting to see some of the fruits of our labour, particularly in that area. We need to start to duplicate that and reflect that in other parts of these indicators. So that's I suppose on that table there. Councillor Khan, you mentioned a couple of bits. Do you want to just repeat your question, sorry?
Yeah, actually, I can see here the 2.28, as you describing. I can see here Black, Asian and minority ethnic employees workforce is 46.
Yeah.
And I want to know how many male or female in that group.
I don't really want to do off the top of my head, so can I send that to you via email?
Yeah,
okay?
please, because I'm going Radio Nottingham Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I want to know, if somebody asks me over the phone on the radio, and then I want to know,
we can,
the exact numbers and that.
We can certainly.
And
provide that for you.
the other one, whole workforce, there is positions for supervisory role, managers and operational managers are women, and I want to know if there are any manager role from the minority group.
So I think
if you can find out, please, for me.
Yeah, I can send that through to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any questions on the equality monitoring information?
No, I mean, I think you've mentioned it before. I mean, we talked about this in terms of LGBT, and when it says that's our percentage, I'm pretty sure we've got more staff than that. But if we look at staff who are actually out at work, it's not so many people actually in the fire stations themselves. I spoke to the LGBT network, and obviously they've been doing some work on this. And I think we're seeing some of the fruits of it. So perhaps we've got reason for optimism there. I think at the last meeting is what we discussed in terms of recruitment and where we're recruiting from, based on Councillor Khan's previous comment. Is obviously there's differences in the county. If you're looking at representation, obviously Nottinghamshire is quite a white county. In fact, it's proportionally quite high compared to a lot of the country, whereas the city isn't. And I think we've said that perhaps if you look at recruiting a bit more in the city or events connected to that, then we might get more representation. But it's an ongoing feast. John, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, something I've never mentioned, it's something I've been naive to, and it's my fault with this, is Newark is obviously has a massive GRT community. Do we know if we have any GRT representatives in the fire authority?
If we have, I think the numbers are small, but we'd have to pull those figures through for you. We don't generally, because we don't want people to be identifiable. We don't go into.
Because I'm just aware that they are a protected characteristic, like being LGBT and other.
Yeah.
And it would be because they are. We always talk about the. I want to use the right terminology because I don't want to get in trouble. We always talk about the other characteristics. And this is. It's a small community over Nottinghamshire, but for Newark it's actually quite a large community. Yeah. And I think it would be interesting to know if everybody's represented equally.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah, of course, Patience.
Yeah, we should actually work hard on this, but we should realize that there's some people that take others. There might be bisexual, lesbians, but in the workplace, instead of putting that, they put others. So others can be part of this as well.
Yeah.
So we should have that back of our minds too as well. Although we need to work hard to increase all this, but at the same time, there might be people that are lesbian and all that, but they won't want to get it.
Yeah. It's just about about cultural change, I suppose, isn't
Yeah.
it? The other thing I suppose to ask there is in terms of disabled. I presume we use the definition of the Equality Act 2010, and I just wonder how much we share that with staff, because again there might actually be more disabled staff we're employing than, because sometimes people don't class themselves disabled, whereas actually the legislation might.
Yeah.
It's like medication or a condition over a year, isn't it, or taking medication for it, and I suspect we've got more than 4% there.
Yeah, we do a lot around non-visible disability. We're doing more and more around neurodiversity within the organisation, and we're very, very proactive in trying to make sure that people have as many opportunities as they can to talk to us about health conditions, disabilities, particularly early in their careers, so that we can support them when they come to SDC to do their recruits course, when they come back for refresher courses, all of that kind of thing. We've just revised the way in which people can declare a disability within our iTrent system, so it's kind of like a reasonable adjustments passport system now. So it's much more comprehensive than it has been in the past. So I've always room for improvement, but I do feel like we are good at promoting that side of things.
Yeah, Candida.
Yeah, I was going to raise this under the gender pay gap report that's coming next, but it's also very relevant here, and that is that we recognise that we look here on a quarterly or regular basis at these very incremental changes that are made across our workforce, and we repeat the discussion and the frustration around progress not being made perhaps as quickly as we would want, and we're always seeking to try and understand why that is. There's a strand of work that we're proposing to bring for discussion next week to the Strategic Inclusion Board that is looking at a much more a piece of work that will seek to really accelerate the change across the makeup of our workforce to reflect the diversity of our communities, and it will pick up some of these things that are raised, such as areas of deprivation where that deprivation would bring us some, if we were able to recruit in those areas, that would bring us some diversity by default. The discrepancy between where our workforce lives, so there are, for example, in the city, we have fewer people who live in and apply for jobs for us from the city than we do from some other areas of the county, and what that does is then reinforce some of the issues we have around levels of diversity. And actually, when we're trying perhaps to set targets, we should be looking at differing targets so that the localised communities can be reflected in how we try and recruit, rather than blunt blanket figures which make it quite difficult to kind of discern the progress that we're making.
Yeah.
So we will be bringing a proposal around that for discussion with the wider Strategic Inclusion Board members next Friday at the Rising Policy and Strategy Committee. So I just thought I would flag that now, because hopefully that piece of work will be able then to really get underneath some of these issues and put actions in place that will begin to address them in a terrier-like fashion. But what I will say is that will require investment and resource, and we'll need to be looking at what we might need to spend in order to be able to achieve some significant progress in this area.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I?
Sorry, please.
Although I'm waiting, the next one that is bigger, but here, still on page 13, and what are we doing to increase, like most of BEM people doesn't pass supervisory rules. There is no watch manager, no senior manager of BEM background. So we should be able to do something about that. And if there's need support or something like that to support them, support those of them to get up, because none of them is just only a supervisory. They get to only supervisory level and don't get to higher level. So I think we should be offering a support to that. And probably if within the HR, if those that are up to supervisory level should be offered a support, so that an encouragement to go for a higher post, because none of them is only at supervisory, none of them is on a higher, from 13 according to what page 13 is. So what do we do about that?
I think it's a perennial issue for us. We are developing our talent management approach, which includes a positive action element to it. We do feel like the first part of this is some of the work that Candida has just alluded to. So you need to have a critical mass of people in the organisation in firefighter positions so that you can start to progress those people. And whilst we have made some progress over the last 10 years, I'd say, you need
So what are the progress we've made?
Sorry?
What are the progress?
The progress, over the last 10 years, we've increased the diversity of the workforce in terms of female firefighters and people from ethnic minorities applying to the organisation. Slight increases at supervisory management level, I'd say, but middle and senior is, as you said, and it says at the top of page 14, is not good enough. And
Yeah, it's not good enough. We should.
so we need to do more
Yeah.
to mentor. And that's a positive action programme which we offer to underrepresented groups in the organisation, and that has borne some fruit where people have come in non-managerial positions and they have been promoted. So we do have some have some evidence of that, but we need to invest more, as Candida said, and if we do that, I think that we will start to make a difference.
Yeah, I think we have to look into that. It's really important, because we should really reflect the committee we serve.
Yep.
By everybody get to the hierarchy of the organisation. We should have everybody there. So, as candidate, you want to say something?
Yeah, so just as an example, to support what Matt's saying, in our last recruitment round for whole time, I'll use women as the example, there were 384 people applied for the jobs and 50 of them were women. And until we shift who applies for our jobs, we're going to always be struggling in terms of who we have promoted, because we haven't got the intake that we need to have. And that's why we need this much more intensive, long-term plan to change who applies for jobs with us in the first place. And I think quite often you sometimes hear people say, we want the best person for the job. And what I say to that is, how can we have the best people for the job if they're not applying? And we need to be out there in our communities working in a targeted way, using data and evidence to support where we need to be in order to change that.
I think that's a good point, isn't it? Because I mean, when you look at on-call roles, for example, on 14, it's the biggest thing really is women. I mean, we've only got 4.9% in on-call roles. I mean, that's a huge discrepancy.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, obviously we're here as lay people, I suppose. There's a cultural aspect to this, isn't there? Like candidates saying, why aren't enough women applying? There's a stereotype about on-call firefighters, I think we should admit that there is. And obviously, how do we overcome that to get more women into service? Because without that, then they're not going to rise up, because this is where, if we look at our current organisation, who's promoted as senior manager, and it tends to come from within that type of the service, doesn't it? So unless more women are in there, or ethnic minorities, they're not going to get promoted, because they're not going to be in those jobs that you get the opportunity to get promoted from.
Exactly.
It's easy to say, I suppose. The difficulty is changing the culture or getting more women to apply, isn't it? And breaking away from the stereotype. There have to be some great strapping bloke, to the cliche, to be a firefighter, which is unfortunately where society seems to still be at the moment. Sorry. Sorry, Tom, come on.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I do want to. I wanted to say this after this discussion. Really, I do personally think they've been slightly harsh on yourselves, particularly candidates. Yes, there's always room for improvement, but I personally feel, compared to other authorities, we are very inclusive, and we do a hell of a lot already. Whether it be the B&B, ladies, people from socioeconomic positions. I think the very fact that we're talking about it with so much passion, and looking around the room in general fire authority, we are very representative. And actually some of the publications that go out, I think, have been massively improved recently. Obviously we've just seen the safety campaign, but the recruitment campaign, I think, has a lot of thought gone into it, and making sure that just the graphics are engaging, but also different people are represented from different backgrounds. And I personally feel that, yes, it is the stereotype, but that's probably the nature of the job rather than what we're doing here. But I think on a positive note, I think there is a lot of good stuff being done. I think Matt particularly as well, great. But obviously there's room for improvement, that we'll always do it. But yeah, that's the thing I wanted to do. I don't want to feel like the committee's giving you a battering, certainly from my perspective, it's amazing. And if you compare it to similar authorities, whether it be the police, for example, because some of their campaigns are laughable, I think we are a step above a lot of other organisations comparable. So I think we're very proud.
Are we done? Okay. Anything else on that report? No, we're just looking at the... has anyone got any questions on the rest of it? We're looking forward in terms of applications, etc. So the recommendation is just that we note the contents of the report. We're happy to do that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to item 5, gender pay gap report.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Chair. So this is the annual report that meets our duty to report on the gender pay gap, and you'll be familiar with this concept. It's required by government for us. This report reports on data that is at the 31st of March 2023, and we have until the 31st of March 2024 to report on it. I'm not intending to go through all of the appendices and all the technical detail, although Tracy will be able to explain it if anybody has got a technical question. What I will say is this report shows a headline figure that is a slight improvement on previous years for us. and the remainder of the report really explains the methodologies behind this. Fundamentally, while there is a disparity that we've just been discussing in our workforce, it will be very difficult for us to ever really properly close that gap, because for that very reason the gap is there because there are proportionally fewer women in the higher paid roles in the organisation. And so this whole long-term plan, along with the internal plans that are about developing the people that we have at the moment, those are our ways of seeking to address this and continue to improve this gap, really. And in essence, that is the fundamentals of this report, but obviously open to questions or discussion.
Thanks, Candida. I mean, what we've just been discussing there in 2.16, isn't it? Where it talks about we need to recruit more women into entry-level operational roles, basically.
Yes.
And Tom's
Yes.
expressed a view, which is true. We are making a big effort in terms of that.
Yeah.
And then I suppose the other thing to mention, because it's not for me to say, I wouldn't know, but in 220, obviously, we've got a women's network that's been established now for a couple of years, which hopefully is bearing some fruit, because I suppose in terms of mentoring, etc., and
Yes.
within the service, they know a lot better than we do about how to do that, I would think.
Yes, absolutely. So the Women's Network acts as a fantastic reference group for us when we're developing policies and strategies to take forward. And indeed, the work that they do is developmental as well for the women involved. Tracy's been working with them around all of the things that are identified in 2.21 around the kind of action to take. And we know that some of these actions that are listed here are effective. It's just not in enough volume, perhaps. And that's why at 2.22 we talk about the plan that I referred to earlier that will be coming forward for discussion next week.
And we've got the apprentices that are in 2.5, haven't we, in terms of 8 women who become apprentices. Yeah. John?
Sorry, Chairman, but we're just discussing. I'm probably asking the wrong question, but I just thought I'd mention it. It says Q1 we pay between £9.28 and £15.05, but the living wage is obviously higher than that. Is that just on paper if we don't actually pay that, or is it that just certain individuals? I'm not sure.
What about salary, John?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 30.
In the appendices.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it states...
Yeah, I think it's the way that we have to report the quartiles on the survey. So we obviously do pay the living wage. We don't, yes. So I think it's just the way that we have to report it.
It's like a category, where do they sit?
Yeah. So clearly all of our our pay rates are based on national figures. Which reflect over and above the living wage.
Chairman, through you, it might be, because if somebody was just a glance at this, they might come up with the same thing that I did, that we're not paying. It might just be that we highlighted somewhere that we do pay the living wage.
Fair point.
Could have an asterisk, couldn't we, to say that what our minimum pay scale is. To be honest, that would be an idea, yeah, thank you. Patience?
Yeah, just like what we said in the past page. 216, you said that the key to addressing gender gap is employing more women. But I think that's not the only key. I think another thing we should encourage, like I was at the Women Network. In fact, there are a lot of issues they raised there, which I'm going to take up. I'm going to start working with them. There are women. It's not only the key issue. Another key issue is women raised was encouraging women to apply for, supporting women and encouraging them to apply for higher positions. That was one of the issues they raised. And we should look into that, encouraging women to apply for higher positions. Those that are maybe at lower level, managerial level, to go higher, to apply for the higher position. So they put that across to me, that should be done for women, to encourage them and bring support them to go for a higher position. So with that, they will be able to go for higher positions. It's not just only the key. It's not only just employing more women, which you said here, the key. Another thing is that women that are there already, to encourage them, bring a support. So we should look into a support, how we can support women to go for a higher position.
Okay, thanks, Patience. There's some stuff in 2.1 2.221, sorry, in terms of gaining experience, mentoring, developmental roles, etc., which is probably the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And involvement in projects, so it's things like that, looking at who we have in terms of project teams.
Yeah.
I suppose because that's what you put on, not with any job, isn't it, in terms of when you promotion. So yeah, there will be involvement in that, and you're quite right. And it would also depend on if we haven't got women to mentor hire on. Obviously, we'd have male colleagues would still be able to do this, though, wouldn't they? Be able to pick out, make sure we've got enough women represented in those types of opportunities, which is what you do to advance.
Yeah, so we need to mentor them just like as a candidate is retiring. Have a wonderful position to be a female to take their position up again. So if we have women that are on that, we can support and encourage them to go for a higher position. So within the authority. So if that is done, because they came up with that as one of the points they came up when I attended their group. So we should do that, like a candidate is getting that, we should probably get another female too, and not a male. So if there are females that are high up there that can occupy that, we should encourage that. And if there's any support that needs to be done, we should probably give that support to female so they can come forward for big positions, higher positions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone got any other comments on that, or do you want to come back to anything? No? Okay, the recommendations are, we note the outcomes, and then we maintain enhanced career advancement and support in 2.2.1, which we've been talking about, and the patients has alluded to. We happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next one is 6, review of workforce plan.
That would be over to me. So the committee approved the revised workforce plan at its last meeting actually on the 23rd of June. So this reflects a sort of mid-year position of the plan because it runs from April. Basically the plan anticipates turnover and recruitment requirements and the ways in which we are going to maintain resilience within our workforce and ensure that we have the skills, not just the bodies but the skills as well, to deliver on our CRP and our delivery plan. So this just breaks down what happened really over the last 6 months in terms of the workforce and the position that we're now in. I mean, members may remember particularly with the whole-time workforce in the last financial year that due to budget issues we didn't actually recruit, and which meant that the workforce numbers fell below the established level. So there's been a lot of work going on in the last 6 months to bring that back up to ridership levels, not just through this committee but also through the Fire Authority with various reports about how we will maintain and enhance the current ridership. So under 2.4 it just states there's been 27 new starters to whole-time roles. The majority of those will be to apprentice firefighter roles, and that was due to the 22 campaign where people are now coming into the service and starting their training. So we had those people starting in April who are now will be posted out on station and also started in September, so that cohort will be coming through. I think they finish about December. Yeah. And then obviously they will then be posted out to station. We did something we hadn't done before this time. We brought in 3 additional apprentice firefighters and we placed them in our prevention team for various reasons. Some of them was to do with their personal circumstances. So that they will actually start their training next April, but in the meantime they will have become more embedded into the organisation and seen different parts of the organisation, whereas obviously most trainees they go to Service Development Centre and then they go straight out onto their watch. So it's something that seems to have worked actually, and we've spoken to the people involved and they've got quite a lot out of it. So it's something that we will certainly think about for the future. The other addition to the whole-time establishment in the last 6 months has been an area manager on a 12-month secondment with us. So again, that's to help us to deliver on our CRMP. We had 16 leavers in the period. Most of them, as you know, with whole-time workforce, most people leave us due to retirement. They do a 25, 30-year career. We do have people who leave for other reasons. We factor in about 9 leavers a year for other reasons, but the majority of people will serve their time with us and they will retire. So we have quite a good way of sort of predicting what we think the turnover will be, just based on service length and age. So that number of leavers is within our workforce projections. It is what we thought it would be, and we perhaps will see another 5 to 6 leavers during the rest of the course of the year. So one of the things that we have done to address the shortfall in the ridership that I spoke about earlier, as we put out an advert nationally for firefighters, and particularly those with specialist skills who wanted to transfer into the service, and that's been quite successful actually. We have successfully, or will be successfully, transferring in 15 operational roles. So you can see there under 2.6, 11 firefighters, 2 crew managers and 2 watch managers. And some of them will be bringing very specific specialist skills into the service, whether it be driving or specialist rescue or training. Those are people that can be immediately deployed onto station and be effective. We're also probably 3/4 of the way through our whole time recruitment process. So we had quite a bit of positive action over the last few months within communities, and we have been holding some selection days on stations over weekends and in evenings. And Sonny, who's sitting there at the back, knows all about that because I think he attended all of them. So we did quite a lot of those. We changed the way that we did the selection this year, in that we have put fitness testing for earlier in the process, because what we were finding is that when we got to the fitness testing, which people were, particularly women, were falling out of the process. So what we've done is we've brought it earlier into the process. We've given a lot of support to people to get through those tests. We have also allowed people who are sort of quite on the edge of passing to actually go away, do a programme of fitness, come back and take the test in a different way. And we found that was quite successful as well. So we'll evaluate how it's gone, and then we'll see in future campaigns whether that's what we do. So we are now at the point where we are putting 70 people through a telephone screening process, which is being undertaken for us by Futures. So that's going to be going on over the next 3 weeks or so. That will then take us into our job-related testing, and then the people who are successful in that will go into the assessment centre in January. So we're quite a way through that process, and we would be hoping to recruit up to about 32 apprentice firefighters through that for next year, bringing them in gradually through the course of next year.
John, do you want to come in?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously you're aware I'm in the military and we do tests all year round and you have to keep passing them. Is it a one basic fitness test you've done, or is it a case of a steady stream, and if you fail during that period then you get back through or back squatted, or you have to do it again, or do you get let go? Because it's a lot of investment to give for if you fail something then you're gone.
Yeah, well these are for so applicants for the service, so they do get the one chance to do the fitness test. If they're very close, then we do work with them and bring them back and test them again. So that is what we do. But you have to, the fitness test is an essential element of coming into the service. You have to, when you come into the service, have a fitness level in order, for instance, to be able to do the BA training and things like that. So we do put a lot of work, we put a lot of advice out on our websites about how you can improve your fitness, how you can do it incrementally over, so, we literally give a fitness program to people, say week 1 do this, week 2 up it a bit, so and our fitness advisor who works in our occupational health team works with individuals in order to increase their fitness where they
And is there a male female pass, or is it everybody?
No, it's the same for everybody. We do, or I'll look at some here, but we do work with women because this is where we found in the past that they tend to fall out of the process. So we do work with women to increase their fitness levels prior to going into the testing.
Now, have we looked at maybe third-party trainers that people could reach out to do like a pre-train before they come in?
Well, we do that. Our fitness
Okay.
advisor does that. So we hold sessions over various dates. The people come in, usually it's usually in the evening, isn't it? They will come in and work with our fitness advisor, who will, work with them to improve mainly their aerobic fitness.
Is there any chance I can get a copy of what the fitness test is?
Right.
I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
I think you should put the whole committee through it.
I
I
love-
reckon everyone can do better than us. Like,
I don't think I could do it anymore, but it'd be interesting just to see what.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all on the website.
It's all on the
all
website. Is it?
and you
Yeah.
can, in fact, there's films that show you how to do it all.
Oh, let's
Yeah,
the committee
yeah.
go on.
Yeah.
I'll sit with popcorn.
that's a challenge. I mean, it depends what it is, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do a bit of running. I'm not sure about the strength.
Goal, I reckon.
Been a long distance runner.
We do beep test, but what we found when we look back over previous testing is that in some cases, if you're not used to doing it, there is quite a technique.
Yes.
So that is why, if people are quite near the board, they've only just failed, we give them a fitness program, we allow them to come back and be tested again.
Just show me geeking out now. What's the level on it? What have you got to achieve?
8.7.
8.7.
Oh,
So it's quite.
what was that?
Yeah.
I might have been 14.
Yeah, so it's linked into there are national standards for firefighters. So it's called I don't know the exact, but it's 42 VO.
VO2 max.
VO2 max, which you have to be on entry into the service. So when we do your pre-employment medical, that is what we're testing for. So what we try and do is, because not a lot of the population will be at that, so we try and help people to get there.
Okay, Candice, do you want to come in?
No, it was that very point that the test is only to assess the standard. It's
Yeah.
Passing the test is not of it. It's if you could reach that standard without moving, you could reach that standard. Yeah. So
Okay.
which obviously people can't, but I'm trying to illustrate the point.
Yeah.
So we're assessing to the standard rather than saying, oh, it's the bleep test that gives you that. There are a range of different ways that standard can be assessed.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Thanks.
So just carry on, just in terms of the whole time, there was a report to authority in July this year, it was called Resourcing to Risk, and that identified different ways in which we could deliver operational services on stations through the ridership, and that allowed us to release 4 operational posts, support resourcing of service priorities. So we're currently working through that and determining where those posts will go, but probably 2 of the posts will come in to support Matt's team and the ODI team, so that in terms of for instance, positive action, rather than us sort of waiting until sort of 6-9 months before we're due to recruit, actually we can be doing that work all the time. So that would be the idea of that and how it would fit in. Just to reference the 2.8, the numbers of promotion processes that have been undertaken in the last 6 months, a lot, to say, nearly for every level, crew watch, station group and area manager. And that's to help us, obviously, because we're saying we can plan when people are going to retire generally. People take their own decision, but we can generally tell. So we do try and plan those promotion processes about what we know is going to happen in terms of succession so that we don't have gaps. 2.9 refers to the fact we're obviously recruiting to Assistant Chief Fire Officer post at the moment, and those interviews are taking place on 1st of December. And then finally, under the whole time part of the plan, clearly the conversion of Ashfield from a mixed crewing to a whole time station has been implemented during that 6 months. The majority of them has now been confirmed, the people who will be moving in and out of the station, and the station will revert back to whole time duty system from 29th of November. So that's just following through, obviously, on a previous fire authority decision. On-call workforce, there hasn't been recruitment in that period recruitment campaign. We have had 30 new appointments, which were a result of a previous recruitment campaign, so they will be passing out, or they have just passed out actually. The numbers of leavers for on-call has been actually less than we predicted they would be.
Yeah.
We have generally, because of the nature of the role, people move homes, they might move jobs, which means they can't provide that cover anymore within their local communities. But we haven't, that hasn't been at the levels we predicted. And that we see year in, year out. So I don't know the reason for that, but it's quite good to see that people are. We did have an issue, not just recruitment but retention. How do we keep people? We train them, and then they leave us. So that's quite a positive thing, I think, to see this year that we have that retention has improved. And then finally, the support workforce, which I know in previous meetings we've discussed the higher levels of turnover that we'd seen, certainly immediately post-COVID, when we were seeing about a 24% turnover rate of our support staff. That, I'm glad to say, has significantly reduced. So we had 10 leavers and 40 new appointments in the last 6 months. It's within workforce projections. It's probably a bit below workforce projections in terms of leavers. There is reference in there to the National Employers under 2.16 in consultation on the 23-24 pay settlement that has now been settled in the last week or so. So that has resulted in a flat rate payment of £1,925 or an average of 3.88%. Which I think will really help us in terms of recruitment, certainly, and retention. So I'm glad there's been a long-standing, outstanding pay settlement, so it's good that it's been finally concluded. And then in 2.18, just talk about the work under the Futures 25 programme, our change programme. That is now reviewing our prevention activities and our prevention structure, and will report before the end of the year. Members will know Futures 25, there were quite a few different work strands in there, but quite a lot of them will impact on workforce. So over time, where that happens, we'll obviously be reporting that back into committee. 2.19, just looking at other workforce issues. I think we've probably covered these in previous reports, so how we become more representative and diverse. We've discussed that earlier. The focus on employee well-being and improved sickness absence rate. We've obviously covered sickness absence rates in some detail earlier in the report, and we are working hard to make sure that our employee well-being offering is really one of the best that you could expect in any employer, which I think it is. And since the last time we met, we have actually opened a facility on our benefits platform to allow people to order home electrical items up to a value of £1,000 and then pay for these through salary, just because we understand the difficulties that families are having. And clearly, if you can purchase something, like a new fridge or whatever that's, you don't have to use a credit card, you don't have to have interest payments. It is helpful. It is a little bit of help for people. So we have introduced that as well in the last 6 months.
Okay, thank you very much. Have we got any questions there, folks? Some good news in terms of 2.6 with the transfer particularly. That's actually pretty successful. Has anyone got anything else to add to that? Any points that they care to make? No? Okay, thank you very much then. We'll, at that point, we'll move on to the next item, which is a confidential reporting of employee concerns, which is in the post actually yesterday, I think.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, interestingly.
I was just saying this morning we don't really get any information about the policy in Europe because we only get them in the cabinet.
No. Probably good from our point of view. But anyway, sorry, Candida.
Yes, so this is a report for noting and to give members information and reassurance around the implementation of a new mechanism that's now available for employees to raise concerns, should they have any, in a confidential through confidential manner and through an independent route. So the background sets out the reasons behind this, and members will already be very familiar with this context that we're working in. This is one of the measures that was there as a recommendation through the Inspectorate to address some of the prevailing cultural issues that are found in some services across the country, predominantly, of course, and most publicly in London Fire Brigade. Section 2 sets out the approach that we've taken to procuring an organisation to work with us. We're working in collaboration. That has helped make sure that we're getting value for money from this. We've gone through a process, brought in service. They have gone out and promoted it so that people know that it's there, and that promotion will continue. I think the only other thing to really say is that although this is there, it is important to note that we do, of course, still have all of our existing routes for people to raise concerns, and they remain as valid as they ever were, and include established routes such as the whistleblowing policy, speaking directly with line managers, going to HR, and of course working with the trade unions, and all of that is still there. We will, over time, of course, report back on how well this is being used and whether it is highlighting issues that potentially haven't been highlighted before.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone got any points there? I think it's pretty clear, isn't it? We know in other organisations where there have been problems, we're not complacent, as we've said before. And obviously this is something there so people can report concerns, you know, privately. As you say, Candida, there's other mechanisms as well, isn't there, in terms of how people can do. We'll just have to review this, but so far we've not had any inkling that we've had the problems that other places have. No, but we just obviously, you know, keep aware of that. I don't think there's anything else on that, folks, other than we just note the content of the report. Okay, we're happy to do so. Okay, if that's the case, I don't think we've got anything else. I'll just check. No, is this going to be your last meeting, Candida?
It is, yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your service and all your work for this committee. It's hugely appreciated, and wish you a very happy retirement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, I'll now close the meeting.